Welcome to Uncensored Conservatism. This is episode number 239, continuing to look at the Constitutional Convention of 1787. I would like to welcome Mr. Langdon and Mr. Gilmer from New Hampshire at long last. We've secured lodging for them and have brought them up to date on everything. All right, well, that's great. We're up to the provision for future amendments. There's no objections? Okay, Resolution 18 regarding an oath. Have the national officers swear an oath to their state also. I think that this is a national government. The oath should be to the national government. Oaths mean nothing, and I'm not a fan of them. Wouldn't an oath to uphold this Constitution mean not the amendments, if there are any? No, the amendments would become part of the Constitution, so it would be an oath to uphold them as well. If I take an oath to uphold the Constitution in 1789 and an amendment is passed in 1792, how am I beholden to that amendment? I don't see any inconsistency here. Just say the damn words and go about your business. This oath will simply bind us as a nation. All right, listen, let's just vote on this oath. Okay, great. It passes unanimously. Next up, ratification by some convention process. It should be ratified by the state legislatures. Jesus Christ. Is this a constitution for the people or for the state legislatures? How did state legislatures and constitutions come about? Through conventions of the people. I look at the present system for guidance. Laws have been set up in some states that directly oppose the Confederated Congress and the Articles. The state legislatures pass these laws, or a few demagogues within them. We must take ratification away from these people. States don't even change their own constitutions unless it is by the people. Randolph and Mason are full of crap. The states are not going to knuckle under just because we wrote some words here in Philadelphia. People are accustomed to the current system, and asking the people, not the legislatures, to go back over everything and approve something, it will just cause confusion and disruption. Two people often cannot agree on something simple, let alone what we're creating here. Do you think a farmer cares about separation of powers or checks and balances and all this political theory? Try explaining this to the people and they'll return a blank stare. State legislatures are better at deciding these things. Well, I'm sorry you have such a low opinion of our constituents. If the people meet in convention, they will not be distracted by other business. They will be focused on the task at hand, no matter how novel or complex. Many states have a bicameral Congress, so you would have to get ratification through both of those houses and the governor's signature for ratification. Some of the best men in the community are excluded from the legislature. I mean, how many men of the clergy helped ratify the Massachusetts Convention? Ratification by convention of the people makes the most practical and philosophical sense. And mark my words, Rhode Island doesn't even send anyone to this convention, and they won't ratify this Constitution if we leave it to their weird legislature. I also suspect New York to be a problem. You notice they've withdrawn from this convention because they got what they wanted. There are rumblings in New York that the people want to ratify anything we come up with. If you leave it to the people in Albany, it will be the United States and New York separate. Yeah, you say a lot of words that mean squat. If you can find me one legislature unqualified to consider ratification, then I'll agree to this convention idea. The prevailing wish of the eastern states, including Rhode Island, is to get rid of the public debt. Mason and the others want to strengthen it. Mason's talk of possible secession is just that. It's all talk and bluster. Well, I thought the resolution was written so that it was an either-or thing. Can't the state legislatures refer it to a convention if they want to? Although I really do like the convention idea better. Oliver, by appealing to the people, all obstacles can be overcome, whether their state constitutions allow dissolution of the articles of ratification of this constitution. You're still under the silly assumption we're amending these articles. Let me get this through your thick, tiny skull. We are replacing the articles with this document. What happens once this convention ends is then out of our hands. Well, I don't understand why state legislatures can't be given the option of ratification, but I'll admit submitting it to the people through a convention would give it more legitimacy. I really never thought this would be a matter of great debate. I thought we all agreed the articles were defective, and that's the actions of states like Rogue Island added to the defects. Let's just vote. State ratification failed, and referral to the people through conventions passed 9-1. I propose that each state receives a specified number of senators and that they vote per capita. We may have our differences, and you have a weird name, but I like this idea. I'm figuring 3 per state is a good number. If only 2, pick up a quorum. That would take only 14 people. Yeah, but a smaller number would be better in times of war whose power resides in the Senate. Think also of the new states. I can currently think of a potential 4. Maine, Vermont, Kentucky, and Franklin. The rumors you hear of detachment from North Carolina to form the state of Franklin are kind of premature. 3 from 2 each state is too many. The current Congress has already designated our Northwest territories to be 10 states. Mr. Gorham names another 4. That would make a total of 27 states, or 81 senators. With 2 senators, we get 54, which is better for deliberations, not to mention all the expense. The per capita idea has merit. I'm thinking about these new states gaining too much power too quickly. Men of distinction in Virginia and North Carolina are not going to rush into these areas. Instead, the riffraff will, and the riffraff will be sent to the Senate. And we have to guard against this. The 3 senators per state was disapproved, and 9-1, it was approved for 2. Unanimously for 2 per state. And the per capita thing, doesn't that, undermine the equality in the Senate? Hold on there now, Martin. First of all, no, it doesn't. They'll likely vote as one anyway, especially if they felt their interests were being injured. But let's assume these 2 senators disagree on something of national importance, like you and I right now. Our interests may be the same, but our principles may differ. And I'd rather a Senate that votes on principle rather than an attachment to their state. Per capita voting was then approved 9-1. Well, I got to object to this idea of electors choosing the executive. I can't imagine a state sending these qualified electors some distance to make this decision. The expense alone would disqualify people. Let's just postpone this and think on it overnight. They agreed to postpone 8-2. I move that a committee be formed to present a detailed plan of everything agreed to date, except the part about who chooses or how we go about choosing this executive. If this committee does not provide for the security and economic well-being of the South and our slaves and taxes on exports, I will be obliged to leave this convention and return to South Carolina. The idea was then referred to a committee, which was approved 9-1. How many members? 1 from each state? The idea was defeated 9-1. Then 7, and let's vote. The motion failed 5-5. I see where this is headed. 5 members, no less. It passed. They were adjourned. Appointment of the executive by electors is now up for discussion. I move that the executive be chosen by the legislature, and we deep six this elector idea. The hell's in the drinking water in New Jersey? The decision will be so important that people will fight to be an elector. If we do its plan, we're back to square one, and the executive should not be eligible for a second term. Except for one fact, Elbridge, when his second term comes around, it'll be a different legislature doing the choosing, and he won't depend on the first group for re-election. If the executive can suck up to the legislature, they can suck up to an elector also. We're making this more complicated than it needs to be. Let's just go back to the regular idea. Chosen by the legislature, a 7-year term, and ineligible after that. Houston's right. All the good people from these new western states will just serve in the legislature or their home states, and only the trash would be left. And I prefer 3 executives, 1 from each part of the country. I'm a tobacco grower, and I know nothing about fisheries or merchant vessels. A single executive is just a king. Perhaps the state executives should choose, and if nobody gets a majority, the lower branch of the Senate, or the Senate chooses a winner from the top four. Houston's motion was then approved 7-4. Then I must insist they not be eligible for a second term. All right, this all stems from the fact the legislature chooses him. If he wasn't and was instead chosen by the people or electors, should he still be eligible, Mr. Martin? If he's doing the job, he should be. The central issue is his independence from Congress, but there will always be the option of impeachment. In that case, a lifetime appointment may be warranted. Provided he is ineligible, make the term 11 years. Make it 15 years. No, make it 20 years. Stop being assholes. Just make it 8 years. Sadly, we're back to this point. If the executive is 35 and has a 15-year term limit, we then discard him in his prime of age of 50. Name one young pope, and they serve for life, and they do a damn fine job of commanding the Catholics. So we need to postpone this issue. I'm at a loss. I thought this thing was settled. Maybe we should let this committee of detail deal with it. The mode of election is the problem. Maybe like 7 members of Congress could be locked in a room until they choose. And should they release a white puff of smoke after they make their choice? If the legislature chooses, the executive will be dependent on them, and no one can get that through their thick skulls. The answer is threefold: a shorter term, re-eligibility, and a different means of election. A vote to postpone the matter fails, 7-3. Then the executive should be chosen every so often by a certain number of electors chosen from the legislature, and they make the choice. Oh, sure, and maybe we should just draw straws. What if they choose some idiot? We're stuck with them. Any method using the legislature would be a bad one. We should be governed by reason, not chance. Maybe we should just hire a gypsy to look into her crystal ball and make a choice. You Bostonians are so damn literal. I second the postponement. The issue was then postponed. I observe that the clause declaring direct taxation to be proportional to their representation is unfair, since we do not have an accurate count of the population. If this remains in the report from the committee, I must strenuously object. Wait on a second. I thought we were debating the executive. We postponed the issue. We did? You voted with the rest of us. I thought we were voting on that gypsy thing. With Mr. Carroll's suggestion, I think the whole clause should be stricken. It was used to get us over a hill on something, and now we're over that hill. As president of this convention, I will now leave for 1 hour while you decide amongst yourselves who will be on this committee of detail. Have we decided, Mr. Jackson? Who are the members? They are Mr. Rutledge of South Carolina, Mr. Randolph of Virginia, Mr. Gorham of Massachusetts, Mr. Ellsworth of Connecticut, and Mr. Wilson of Pennsylvania. Are there any questions? The plan offered by myself on behalf of New Jersey should be considered. Take with it what you want, and good luck. Well, then I also ask that my plan be considered for the same reasons, and even Hamilton's plan. No objections? We're adjourned. So I was thinking last night about this whole thing with the executive. Now, everyone believes the executive would be dependent on the legislature for re-election. So how about this idea? The legislature appoints the executive for a specified term, but he's eligible for re-election. However, to get re-elected, we cut the legislature out of the picture and we do it by electors. Any selection by the legislature is just plain wrong. Before I got here, I never realized there were so many ways to choose an executive. We have only 2 really good choices here. Election by the people by popular vote, or through electors. I much prefer election by the people. Some complain that this method would favor certain states or certain regions, but that will not always be the case. As a man of Virginia and the South, I am willing to make sacrifices for the good of the nation. Well, that's you, not all Virginians. The bigger the states, the more votes they will have to elect one of their own. Ellsworth's idea failed 8-3. Well, then I propose that no person can be eligible for more than 6 years in any 12-year period. Now, this idea has some merit. It would remove the idea of dependency on the legislature and leaves the door open for future service to the country. Now, I prefer Congress to chooses, although that could invite foreign influence. The two evils are the formation of factions at home and influence from foreign nations abroad. If you leave it to the Congress, these fears will be realized, but you don't want to make this so complex that the states throw their hands up in disgust. Well, Pinckney's idea does lessen some evils. The guy has some good ideas when he's not playing the class clown. Oh, not really. I see chaos. We want 3 things: lack of dependency on the Congress, stability, and good conduct. Under Pinckney's plan, we get rid of dependency, but it's not stable. Impeachment is the suggested solution for ensuring good conduct, but I doubt those who made the decision to put the person in office will vote to remove that person. So, at one end of the spectrum, the people elect the executive, and at the other end, the Congress elects the executive. Yeah, there's some ideas in between, but I prefer the people elect the person. They may not be the right choice, but it would be their choice. The fear of people doing the choosing is that the large states will pick one of their own. Maybe they should make 3 choices, but only one can be from their own state. Whoever gets the most votes simply wins. That's a better idea, but I suggest they pick only 2 people. Now, something good could come from this idea, but what if the second place person in every state becomes the winner? And the people would choose some obscure person from another state to get their guy over the finish line. So we're back to the popular election by the people. That's the worst option on the table. The ignorance of the people would be taken advantage of by men of influence, and I refer specifically to the Order of the Cincinnati. They are united, they are respected, and they are influential. And I have respect for these people, since one of them chairs this convention. They would be making the choices, and the people will simply follow their lead. I have no problem with this direct election idea. If there is no clear-cut winner, then you just let the Congress or electors decide. The motion before us is Pinckney's idea. How do we vote? All right, it fails, 6-5. I have before us a motion that the Committee of Detail be given a copy of the Journal for deliberations. Okay, that passes. Well, man, despite what this committee does, then I propose that every delegate here gets a copy of that there journal. I've lost track of everything we've agreed to. The motion failed, 6-5. Since we can't resolve this executive thing, the committee should, and we can discuss it further from there. Well, I have a problem with 5 people making such an important decision. I've been here only a few days, and it appears we are no closer to solving this mess than you were in June. I like Jerry's idea. It's late, and we shall adjourn for the day. I believe the pending business is to allow the Committee of Detail to determine how the executive is chosen. Now, I've examined all the options. As Mr. Jerry pointed out, I will abhor the day a cabal of men will influence the masses, and I think the best method is election by the Congress. Their terms should be fixed, and they should be ineligible for re-election. They should return to the people so that they may experience the effects of their decisions. We should go back to our original idea. Mr. Mason speaks as if returning to the people is a punishment. May I remind you that in a free government, the people are sovereign, and its leaders are the servants. A return to the people is a promotion, not a punishment. On Mason's proposal, how do we vote? Well, it passes 7-3. A man of merit should not turn his back on patriotism. On the whole paragraph as amended, how do we vote? Wait, just pick a minute here. What exactly the hell are we voting on? The executive is chosen by Congress for a 7-year term. They're ineligible for re-election. They execute the laws passed by Congress, and they can be removed through impeachment. So the things we originally proposed? Well, ain't this just some shit now? The motion then passed 6-3. I then rise to suggest that members of Congress should be landowners as a qualification and that they be citizens. Also, if they have unsettled accounts or debtors, they too should be excluded from Congress. Many of these debtors have wormed their way into state legislatures and passed laws to their benefit. Finally, an idea I can sort of agree with, not all, but some of it. There are very few debtors in this country right now, but many with unsettled accounts. Some in this room. This suggestion by Mason is unjust and unfair, and it will discriminate against many people in this country. Those with unsettled accounts find themselves in that situation because of laws passed by the states. And I speak of worthless paper money. My good friend sitting here, Robert Morris, has been in charge of the finances of the current Congress. He himself took out a large loan from France to fund our war, and thank God he did. Are we to exclude him? Just leave the qualifications to Congress. And when Parliament did exactly that, what happened during the reign of Queen Anne? In Virginia, I have seen this happen where those with debts have gotten into our legislature and tried to change the laws. And we have to certainly guard against that somehow. Don't fall for this crap, James. We're overthinking things. As long as anyone had a debt or unsettled accounts, they're going to be excluded. This is just a bad attempt to protect the landed classes at the expense of the moneyed classes. I have no problem with these qualifications, and they should apply to the executive and the judiciary also. So we exclude a few people. Who cares? And I guess you'd like them thrown in debtor's prison also. Well, now, that would exclude them, eh? This qualification of land, it was the money interest that funded our war. If we get another war into another war, we would likely call on them again. Would they be willing and answer that call? No list of qualifications will ever be complete. If we leave it to Congress, they'll get bogged down in this or that, and they'll come up with a list from here to Boston. Mason's idea inserts the value of wealth into a Republican document when I thought virtue and merit were the goals. He wants to disqualify men on virtue and merit because they don't hold land, and this is repugnant to a republic, and to mankind, I might add. If property is one object of government, then property should be protected, sir. Then strike out the words landed and let the committee work out the qualifications. And owning land is not an indicator of wealth anyway. There are many landowners in Virginia who carry large debts. And why did the rural farmers of your state rise up in rebellion? It wasn't over their debt, it was over taxation and how to enforce payment. And what are we talking about here? How much land? A tiny home or 10,000 acres? Today we have the landowners, the merchants, and the manufacturers. Look across the Atlantic. Our situation will not always be the same. They are commercial giants today, not because of agriculture, but because of their manufacturers. That will eventually occur here, and Mr. Mason wants the landowners to have a larger say in Congress. Bringing them together in this Congress can only be an advantage. We will vote on striking landed from the proposal. Okay, that is stricken by a 10-1 vote. On the motion that property and citizenship be considered, that passes 8-3. On the proposal that those with debts and unsettled accounts should be disqualified, strike out unsettled accounts. Those with unsettled accounts are the merchants and the manufacturers. It would be unfair to disqualify them. I second this motion. It's just great. So you send a signal not to settle your accounts. We may as well just be making a debtor a qualification, not disqualify them. The motion of Carroll doesn't go far enough. Strike out both unsettled accounts and debts. This proposal puts too much power in the hands of accountants and auditors. If you're worried about the Order of the Cincinnati, trust me, there's more auditors and accountants than them. I'm going to have to agree. All these disqualifications are just going to piss off some people. Well, then fine. Do just that. You'll have a Congress full of debtors or pensioners. The people might like these qualifications. In fact, you know what? Add pensioners to the list. The motion failed 8-2. The clause about excluding debtors will disqualify every importing merchant in this country. The Treasury will be filled with taxes on imports. Every merchant must post a bond by law, which makes them a debtor to the public. In the future, the debtors will far outnumber the creditors. If you include this provision, you're asking for trouble, trust me. On the motion to strike out unsettled accounts, the vote is 9-2 to strike the disqualification. Then strike out the word debtors also. Is the man holding 3 shillings in debt equal to the man holding 3,000 in debt, 30,000 in debt? In that case, everyone in arrears on taxes is disqualified. And how the hell is anyone supposed to know one's debts? Is everyone going to open their books for inspection? Now, after listening to these arguments, I was originally for this idea because I like the idea of land ownership being a qualification. But now I'll admit this proposal goes way, way too far. It would exclude anyone who purchased any land to the west because they'd be in debt to the government. I mean, it's public debt, right? It's also an obstacle to the sale of those properties. Why would somebody assume any debt if they know they're just going to get excluded from public service, right? Yeah, I don't like this idea. So how do we vote on this debtor thing? All right. The disqualification of those with debt is stricken by a 9-2 vote. On another matter, this Constitution should include a provision for a permanent seat of government. It should not be a current state capital. The committee should consider this. This idea has merit, although I suspect the seat will be in New York or Philadelphia. It certainly shouldn't be a state capital. If we build a home for Congress in New York, what's to stop that state from moving their capital from Albany to there? As for Philadelphia, don't worry about Philadelphia. We are planning to move our capital to along the Susquehanna River rather than here. Does it have to be a current large city? Why? Because they have the facilities and the infrastructure, little guy. The seat of government should be centrally located. Both New York and Philadelphia are too distant for some. And do we expect attendance from these new states to the west? It was a bitch getting here from South Carolina. I can only imagine making it here from the west of the Appalachians. I think it's best if we leave it to the committee. Then in deference to General Washington, I withdraw my motion. This is great. We have made great progress despite some of the language and the debate. The Committee of Detail now has the job of putting this all into words. It will not be the last word, as there will be a presentation, debate, revision, and amendments. Thankfully, the heat has left Philadelphia for now. Given the enormity and importance of their task, they must be given ample time to complete it. Mr. Jackson informs me there are 23 resolutions to consider, some harder than others. For these reasons, we will adjourn until Monday, August 6th. That should give them the time needed. Now, when you say August 6th, do you mean August 6th, 1787? Oh, shut up, Pinckney. Point of order. Yes, 1787. No, not that. Are delegates allowed to return to their home states? And what about correspondence with those who sent us here? What you do in the next 10 days is your business. I am returning to Mount Vernon to attend to some affairs. I assume travel will keep some of you in Philadelphia. Take advantage of what they have to offer. As for correspondence, secrecy was discussed at the beginning of this convention, and I must insist on it now. We are getting closer to achieving something, and I don't want it screwed up. Use your discretion. If there are no other questions, we're adjourned until August 6th. And yes, Pinckney, that's 1787.